Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So on the agenda tonight, we have Greg Koch, and this is coming from 2018. There is a discrepancy here between the dates because on stage in the background it says 2017. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but let's get Greg up on screen and see how he gets on. Going to jump in here because we've had so much already, because the amount of technique that Greg has and also the techniques that he throws together and the stylizations. Of course, we can see here that he's using chicken picking, or as most people will call it, hybrid picking, holding the pick between that first finger and the thumb and using second finger and third finger to then pick the strings, the higher strings, the E, the B and the G sometimes as well. Those techniques that he covered right at the end there, we had the pull-offs, hammer-ons and pull-offs whilst just resting that hand and getting those harmonics up and down the strings. That's something that you'll see Van Halen do quite a lot, but the difference here is Greg is on a pretty clean tone. Van Halen will have a lot of overdrive and delay and reverb and those kind of things that will then really maximize the amount of sound he's going to get from hitting those harmonics or just resting his hand over those strings whilst doing the hammer-ons and pull-offs to the open string. And it's absolutely breathless in terms of the notes he's throwing together, the techniques and the runs. It is so well rehearsed and so well practiced, and Greg will be the first guy to say that he doesn't actually have any hobbies. All he does is just play guitar, and you can very much see that the way that he throws together each little section here, each little run, each passage just follows on absolutely seamlessly. And with that hybrid picking, we've got alternate picking as well, and just general flat picking. He's so good at using this pick. We saw a really long descending run there that he had, that alternate picking with the synchronization between right hand and left hand, absolutely spot on. And having such a clean tone, everything here has got to be so precise, and to keep all of those notes so concise, he's then got to get that alternate picking exactly right. And just so you know, they're called the Koch Marshall Trio because Dylan, the drummer, is Greg's son, and then on the B3 organ we've got Toby Lee Marshall as well, so it's just a combination of their names. That's what they call themselves in this three-piece setup. And just to quickly point out, who's noticed that there's no bassist here? It's just literally Greg supplying all of the melody on that guitar, and then the great playing of Toby Lee on the organ, but then also the drums of his son here, Dylan, absolutely filling in so much space and keeping it interesting, even though we haven't got that standard band setup. But let's have a little pop forward and see where we end up. And then we'll be getting into Toby Lee Marshall's solo there on the organ. But just going back to Greg, you can see the amount of technique that we've got going on. And that sweep picking, just another technique we can tick off the board because Greg's absolutely got that down. What he does tend to throw in quite a lot in this particular jam is that palm muting technique in order to make it sound slightly different, to give a slightly different flavor of a particular run. Here he's using those hammer-ons and pull-offs on those open strings, moving up and down whilst having that palm mute in place. So it's giving it a lot more of a percussive sound rather than being able to hear each note individually like you would have if you weren't having any palm mute on there and just having those strings ringing out. I've just queued it forward here because I won't have time to look at the whole 19 minutes, but I think we're just about to start with a little bit of that palm muting technique that I was just talking about. So let's get back into it. What a cool ending, and what a great little line we had at the end there as well, because Greg does go into these little bluesy sections, but then he'll just totally throw you off with a little run like we had there at the end, which has got certain jazz elements to it as well, but then he just absolutely falls back on that blues towards the end. But anyway, talking about blues, Greg has played with Joe Bonamassa. Way back when, in 1989, Greg actually won a competition called the Blues Breaker Guitar Showdown, and that was judged by Buddy Guy. So Greg certainly has that background of blues playing, and he has cited Jimi Hendrix as a huge influence on his playing, even though with that chicken picking style and that hybrid picking, you can tell that he's really pushed on from those basic blues techniques into some really advanced techniques, as we've seen here. And if you've ever seen an interview with Greg, you'll see that he's just an entertaining guy, he's a funny guy as well, and he's just probably the opposite of what you'd expect with somebody that's got the techniques down to this level. You'd assume that they've locked themselves away in a room for hours and hours, which certainly does happen, and sometimes that can lead to a quite inward personality, whereas that's not the case with Greg. And he's certainly got a lot of respect from loads of guitar players, and every guitar player pretty much to watch him. Steve Vai, in fact, has said that Greg's the kind of guy that you watch and it makes you want to practice and master the instrument. And coming from Steve Vai, that certainly is a massive compliment. And I can even see a little bit of Steve Vai in Greg's playing, and maybe Joe Satriani as well. He does have so many different techniques that he can throw together that you start getting images and visions of other players whilst listening to him play, because he covers such a broad range of techniques and doesn't necessarily just stick to one style like the blues. He just throw in that chicken picking and that jazz as well. But Greg is a really impressive player, and if you want to watch this whole video, I'm going to put the link to it in the description below so you guys can check it out. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!